Hello, welcome to my little trip down road testing memory lane. Another Q&A video today. Thanks for all your questions and comments. I've been on my travels. I've been on the world launch of the GSXS 1000GX Suzuki in Portugal. We're out there riding on the lovely roads near Lisbon. You can see that review and read all about it in MCN online and on video. Typical kind of Suzuki launch, very interesting. It's a highly anticipated bike. This really, these tall rounders really make a lot of sense for a lot of riders. It's kind of billed as a super bike with an upright riding position, kind of in the same vein as an S1000 XR or a Tracer or something like that. And also, I think a lot of people are interested in it because maybe some people don't go down the multistrada route anymore now that it's got a 19-inch front wheel. I mean, I personally think Ducati kind of shot themselves in the foot there by putting a 19-inch front wheel on. I mean, it handles beautifully, that Ducati. And especially you can get sticky tyres for 19-inch front wheels now as well. So there's no reason not to buy it for that reason. But I think that some people just don't like the idea of a 19-inch front wheel and would have preferred a 17. So Ducati have obviously got a 17 on the Pikes Peak. And then they've got a 19 on the V4 Rally. So why didn't they put a 17 on the normal V4? Answers on a postcard, please. But there was a lot of Suzuki engineers at the launch. I mean, I'm surprised if there was anyone left at the factory back in Japan. Yeah, and probably of all the motorcycle launches is where you get the most engineers, and it's really interesting when you receive the launch presentation the night before riding. Each member of the team, the engine team, the chassis team, the electronics team, comes up and explains all about their part of the bike that they designed. And they also have a little bio that goes up on the screen before they start to show what they've been involved with in the past, what other projects. So that's really, really interesting. So that was a great launch. While I was at the launch, I also got to meet Mr. Lamb Chops, which is quite interesting, John. So he's a really, really nice fella. And I think I did a bit of a cameo on his video. So have a look at that. That he's a really nice guy. And, launches are changing now. Before it was just a load of hard-nosed hacks, but now obviously the world's changing and you're getting YouTubers and influencers and people like that, which is all good. There's enough room for everybody. But he was a really nice chap. And also, talking of nice chaps, Chris Eads, Baron Von Grumble, the podcast that we did is up on Spotify now. So it's over 2 hours long. We just talk rubbish for 2 hours. Chris is a really interesting guy. You should just listen to it for him, really, more than anything else. So if you search Baron or my name on Spotify, you should be able to find it. So let's crack on with some questions. And the first one is from S. Johnny. Hi Neezy, a question from Holland. So forgive me my bad English. Well, your English is a lot better than my Dutch. Love your videos, thank you very much. Riding for over 40 years, I started track days again 5 years ago with my SC57 blade. I had to look that up. We never talk in terms of codes when we do bike launches, but I know the blade you're talking about, which is, what would that have been? 2006 or 7, something like that. Anyway, nice bike, but I changed it for an L7 750 GSXR. Good choice. And it's the best bike I ever had. So much fun to ride. First time with that Assen, I was faster than with the blade. Well, I think most people will be faster on a 750 round the track than 1000, but we've talked about that. I'm thinking about changing the shift pattern. Seems a bit easier on the track, I guess. Now to my question. You ride a lot of bikes on the road and on the track. Do you ever make a mistake shifting because of the different patterns? And what do you prefer? Great question. Quite niche, isn't it? If you never go on track. I use race shift when I'm on the track. I've been using race shift on my racing bikes for forever. It's a lot easier race shift on the track. It's a lot more positive when you're changing up through the gearbox to stamp down on the gear lever. So obviously race shift is one up and the rest down. Road shift is one down and the rest up. It's also easier to reach the gear lever when you're fully leant over to the right. And it's also easier to change up through the gears when you're leant over to the left as well. Even coming off the start, when you accelerate from first to second, the very fact you're pushing the brake lever down helps kind of control the wheelie a tiny little bit. I took a while to get used to it when I first started using it. I remember one of the first proper race bikes I rode for MCN was Carl Harris's 2003 championship winning CBR 600RR at Cadwell. I think the team was run by Simon Buckmaster then, and all the Honda people were there. I mean, this is where Honda were winning everything. Honda was scary to me. And I rode Carl Harris's bike around Cadwell. And I think I've said before, you know, I hadn't actually started riding again for a long time when I first joined MCN, so I was a little bit steady to begin with. And I was riding this bike around the track, and the only place to really watch that's convenient is the mountain. So all the team were there watching their bike go around, and I went over the mountain in second gear, instinctively short shift to third, but accidentally went to first instead, and so I just went the wrong way through the gearbox right in front of everybody and looked a right wally. But that aside, I found it quite easy to get used to race shift on the track. You know, if you've got your head down, you press down through the gears. If you've got your head up, you pull up through the gears. That's the easiest way to remember. And now that I've done it so much and I ride on the road and ride on the track, there's instant muscle memory for some reason. I can't explain how, but I never ever forget. The only times I do come unstuck is if I ride road shift on the track. That takes some getting used to. It's much more natural to ride race shift on the track, for me anyway. So I'd recommend that you try race shift for the track, and I think once you get used to it, there'll be no problem switching between the two, road and race. You know, if you've only got one bike and you're using it for the track, you might end up with race shift on the road, and I'm not sure. I mean, it's not to any detriment, is it? It will just, and if you get used to it, it'll be fine. Just don't lend your bike to anybody, because they'll make a big mistake, wouldn't they, when they try and change gear. But yeah, race shift for me all day long. But great question. Thank you very much. Next one from Ross Mayer. Hi, Nevesy. Hope all is well. It's very well, thank you. Thanks for your question. Thought I'd ask, what cases do you use for taking your motorcycle gear abroad with you? As I'm going to Australia for 6 months and hoping to get a motorcycle while I'm out there. Very nice. Rather than buy new gear out there. I want to take my stuff I've got now with me just so I save money and time. Well, yeah, we're always carrying our kit around on launches. You know, race leathers, airbags, textiles, jacket and jeans and everything in between. Most people, including me, use these big Ogio kit bags. They come in all different colours. They're really, really durable. I mean, mine lasts for years and years and years. And, you know, they must be absolutely used and abused on airport luggage belts and being thrown by the baggage handlers. So they're really robust, and they can fit a lot of stuff in there. The only thing is they weigh quite a lot before you've put anything in there, maybe close to 5 kilos. And obviously that sort of affects how much you can put in there, because you don't want to go oversized or overweight with your baggage, because it costs a lot of money, doesn't it? You know, most airlines are kind of 23 kilos before you've got to start, you know, then you have to start paying big money. But those Ogio kit bags are fantastic, and I can get full set of leathers in there, boots, loads of clothes, all my knickknacks. So I'd recommend one of those. They're really, really good. But thank you very much for your question. Kind of on the same lines, really. This is Stephen Spittery. Thanks for your question. And you've got a question. My question is this. Questions. I often travel to other countries and then rent a motorcycle for travel. Nice. I like to use my own helmet, but I'm afraid to chuck it in a bag to be held in the cargo bay. Good helmets are expensive and worth noting if dropped, worth nothing if dropped, so it's not something I'd like to do. Where do you carry your helmet when you fly to new bike launches, etc.? Do you carry it on your person as hand luggage? Well, good question. I rarely carry my crash helmet as hand luggage just because it's just a pain. You know, mainly we fly budget airlines, and if you're carrying a helmet and a rucksack and you're not very first on the plane, there's generally nowhere to put it. So I generally put it in my kit bag. I mean, sometimes I prefer to carry my helmet just because if they lose your luggage, then at least you've got your helmet with you when you do the launch. You can borrow other kit, but when you borrow another helmet, it's not so nice. But I mean, fingers crossed, I've not been in that situation where I've lost a helmet or lost my luggage for a launch. I've come close, but it's never actually happened. So I put my helmet in the kit bag and I kind of position it in a way where I wrap my riding kit around my helmet. So normally the way I layer my kit bag, I put like a back protector or airbag in first, then I'll put either my jacket or my leathers in, and then my helmet, and then I'll put the arms and legs of the jacket with all their body armor over my crash helmet to completely protect it. And yeah, I've not had any damage for any crash helmets or the plastic scoops or anything like that. They're on the top. So yeah, and that works with a big kit bag like an Oggio. So yeah, as long as you wrap it up and put your body armor around it, I think you'd be fine. But great question, thank you very much. The next is from Duke Upshift. I'm really grateful that you're still doing these videos, no problemo. I do the occasional track day and I'm comfortable lapping in the red group. I mean, I assume that's the fast group, is it? But I feel like I'm being held back by my own nerves about losing the front end. I replace the front slick every 3 track days, even though I don't notice degradation in performance. How do you find the limit of a front tyre without crashing if you're not Marc Marquez? And is it safe to run a slick to the side wear markers? Well, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of people are nervous about losing the front end of a bike. Obviously you are, if you feel like you've got to throw sticky front tyres at your bike to not crash. I mean, there's 2 kind of parts to this. How do you feel front end grip? I mean, everyone knows how to feel rear end grip, don't they? Because it's something that you can feel through your whole body. You know, you give it too much throttle and you can feel the wheel spin, and either electronics will catch it or you can catch it, or if you've instigated it yourself, you know when it's coming, so you can kind of control it. With the front tyre, it's a little bit different. You know, the bike's not wheel spinning, it just appears just to go, doesn't it? You know, there are signs when the tyres aren't gripping, you know, especially on the road or at kind of moderate track speeds, because what essentially happens is the steering becomes heavy and the bike doesn't want to turn. So obviously bikes turn when you counter steer, but when the front ends lose grip, the bars want to fold in on themselves, and you get this feeling that the steering's become really, really weighty. And if you're leaning and it's really difficult to steer and you're making a massive effort to counter steer and you keep going with it, then you're going to lose the front. When you sort of get to track speeds and you're trail braking right up to the apex of a corner, you need to have a lot of feel to stop it folding. But there is a simple answer to all this, and it's really to kind of study your riding style. When you get to a point of good speed around the track, you're only really using the front tyre to steer you into corners, and you're not really leaning on it that much. You're getting into a corner, steering the bike, so then you can really lean on the rear tyre, because it's the rear tyre that's doing the big job for you. You know, it's the throttle and the engine that's making you go forward, not your brakes and your front tyre. Okay, if you're racing, you've got to push everything. Everything's got to be on the verge of crashing. But in a track day scenario, you can go very, very, very fast without troubling the front tyre at all, really, without really putting it under too much duress. So, you know, it might be kind of worth having a look at, you know, maybe tweaking your riding style. having a look at Simon Crayfar's Moto Voodoo series of, you know, where to position your bike going into corners, when to let go of the brakes, when to turn. You know, you might be close to a race school at a racetrack somewhere. I don't know what country you're from there, where you can kind of learn better techniques going into corners. But the kind of the bottom line is, you don't really need a huge amount of grip on the front to go fast around the track. You obviously need quite a lot, but you know, not so much that you'd always worry about losing the front. You can really change your riding style, so you just get into the corner a little bit more smartly. So for example, braking at an angle towards the corner, so the bike's still upright, so you're not actually doing a big U going into the corner where you're kind of braking and leaning on the front end, and that's when it's going to go. If you go into the corner in a straight line on the brakes, let go of the brakes when you make the big turn, you're not stressing the front tyre at all. Then the bike can rail around the corner, and then you come on the throttle on the way out, and then you can get good speed down the straights. You know, when I was at the Haslam school instructing, the big thing about some of the riders that had room for improvement was that they'd brake and then get on the throttle almost straight away before the apex. The faster riders would brake, turn, and not really do anything until they're at the apex or a little bit past, and then get on the throttle. And then the bike turns really sweetly because you're not kind of jamming it up with extra inputs. When you're racing, that kind of freewheeling that you would do when you're riding slower is taken up with braking. So you brake all the way up to the apex, which is kind of a different story. That becomes feel. But I think, you know, if you kind of take a couple of steps back from that and just think about how you go into the corner, when you release the brakes and everything in between, I don't think you'll be so reliant on having an ultra grippy front tyre. Obviously, there's no easy answer. You know, you need to really, I suppose, get some instruction really, and get get someone to look at your riding, because quite often you can't see the wood for the trees on your own. But yeah, it's worth going back to basics, break everything down, think about what you're doing, then you shouldn't have to be so reliant on a sticky front. But that is a really good question. Thank you very much. Next, Junior Chats. Thanks for the question. Hi Michael, I'm looking to do my first track day, but I'm struggling to work out the best way to get my bike there. My van is slightly too small to shove the bike in the back, but I have a tow bar. Hire a van or hire a trailer? With work, I'd like to take as little time off as possible and make it stress-free. Thanks for the great videos. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I would say vanning a bike to a track day is definitely the answer. And if your van is slightly too small, then get a hire van. You know, there's so many advantages to vanning a bike. You know, it's easier to load. You can keep it dry. You've got somewhere to sit in the van if the weather's not so good. You've got somewhere to keep all your tools, all your chairs, all your paraphernalia. I mean, if you were to hire a van, they're generally new, so you've got a nice kind of relatively new van to go to the track on. Yeah, there is a little bit of faff going to get it and taking it back, but I would say a van all day long. I mean, a lot of people do tow bikes to track days and even racing, but it's not quite as convenient. You know, you've got to load your car up or load your van up with all your stuff. You know, if it rains, the bike's going to get really soggy. If the straps loosen or undo, you could risk losing the bike off the trailer. But yeah, I'd go van all day long. But yeah, let me know what you do. Thank you very much. And finally, from Covert Mecca. Hey, I've been watching your videos for a good bit and maybe I missed it, but how can I get into testing motorcycles as an influencer? Riding is my passion. I also ride track, and with my platforms combined, I reach over 269 million views per month. But how can I translate that into getting the gig? Thank you. Well, thanks for your question. 269 million views per month. Wow. I mean, I'd say you'd already cracked it. I should be asking you questions. Well, I guess what you're really asking is, you know, how do you go about getting a paid job testing motorcycles? Unfortunately, they're very few and far between. Just because the print media is shrinking, and I think for the future it might all go online at some point. I mean, MCN and the magazines about are doing pretty well. I think they've got to a point where they're specialist publications, and the people that really like them still buy them because they enjoy print. And I think that's going to be around for a good while yet. But obviously, you can't ignore social media and video and websites. In terms of getting paid to test motorcycles in that kind of shrinking pool of print media, there are very few jobs. And the priority really, we advertised for a road tester earlier in the year, and we ended up with Carl Stevens, who used to be at Fast Bikes. He's a very good rider, very good writer, and we had a lot of good applications. But the thing is with my job, even though it looks like I'm riding bikes all the time, I would say it is 80-90% writing, and writing quick and writing exactly to point how the magazines want it, how MCM want it written, how Bike want it written, how Ride magazine want it written, how websites like it written, how social media likes it written, and everything in between. So I think the best way to getting into testing motorcycles for a living is to have some kind of writing training. I'm sure that you can ride with everything you say, and I think that's the easy bit. I think it's easier to teach somebody who can write how to ride than the other way around generally. When I joined MCN, I was lucky enough that I went straight into a journalism course, which is a 6-week intensive training to learn news writing, feature writing and everything in between, subbing and all that kind of stuff. And then when I was on the job, I was in a team of 25 to 30 editorial MCN staff where I had all these safety nets to learn. So, I had my editor, I had sub-editors, I had a deputy editor, I had the editor, and all of these people would kind of groom your copy and got it into a readable state, which it wasn't that great at the beginning. It was a bit Janet and John. I rode this bike and it was really nice, and then I went here, blah, blah, blah. It's a technique that you've got to hone over the years, and because I got my words thrown back at me with loads of red pen all over it at the beginning, I kind of learned how to write to a point. I'm definitely not a natural born writer, and a lot of my contemporaries are a lot better than me. So that's number one. You need the skill of writing above riding, and number two is getting your foot in the door on these publications in the first place. So I don't know where you're from, but it might be an idea to contact magazine editors and show them some examples of your written work. I don't really think it doesn't hold much water to say, oh, I'm a champion racer or whatever. That doesn't really help your cause as a road tester. If you can demonstrate your ability to write and come up with good creative ideas, then that's definitely a start. But then having said all that, a lot of people get along quite nicely as a YouTuber or an influencer, and that could be the way it goes in the future. So if you've got 269 million views, then I reckon you're doing all right anyway. Maybe you can give me some of them. But that's a really, really great question. Thank you very much. And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all your comments and questions. Keep them rolling in, and I will see you again soon.